Coast. Welcome to Pew and Beyond. This is season 3, episode 8. And we're really excited to have Michelle Hauser from the Anglican Foundation with us today, full of lots of fabulous stories and encouragements and just, as I say, encouragement about wonderful things going on all over the church and things that you can do too. So we welcome you as usual. For all our guests out there in Facebook Live, please say hello, tell us where you are, and we really encourage you to join in this conversation with any stories or questions you might have for Michelle, or any stories if you've had something that you're doing in your community or in your church that the Anglican Foundation has been involved with. We'd love to hear that too. So this is Pew and Beyond. I'm Neil Mancourt. I am in Montreal.
I'm Lisa Vaughn with the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. I'm in Halifax, and we begin with our acknowledgement. While we meet on a virtual platform, we do take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. And so from coast to coast to coast, we celebrate and gratefully acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. So speaking of which, the Anglican Foundation has been involved in a number of grants with Indigenous peoples, especially lately. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I want to welcome Michelle. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about the Anglican Foundation. I can't believe anybody joining us today wouldn't know, but just in case, we'll kind of refresh people's memories about the foundation.
That sounds good, Lisa. Yes, there are. We just got a generous donation from someone last week, and she saw our insert in the Anglican Journal and was like, I never heard of the Anglican Foundation before. So, but the Anglican Foundation has been around since 1957. And most people know what community foundations are, and we are essentially the community foundation for the Anglican Church across Canada. We fund ministry programs in Canada. We have a variety of key impact zones. We have obviously infrastructure or buildings. It's about 35% of our grants over the last 10 years or so have gone to that. And then we fund community ministries, those programs that poverty reduction programs and all kinds of interesting community-based programs that churches do. That comprises about 30% of the grant program, and 20% in leadership and education. Obviously bursaries. Many people across the Canadian Church have received bursaries for theological education through AFC. And about 10% of our grants in the last dozen years have gone to fund Indigenous ministries, and another 5% fund sacred music and liturgical arts. So those are the sort of 5 major categories. And we are here for the Canadian Church, and I'm the Development and Communications Officer for AFC, and I've been with AFC for a couple of years, but I was a member and had done some work with AFC in a former life when I worked at the General Synod. So I'm a big believer in what we do and the impact we're having.
Just to say hello to our guests. There's lots of people tuning up, so we want to hear from you as well. Say hello, where you're from. I mean, I hadn't realized, maybe people don't realize just how diverse the different kind of grants you give are.
They don't. I think a lot of people do still think of us, because for many decades, the infrastructure grants, I think, were the dominant, that was the dominant theme in our granting program. And but people are increasingly looking to us more for innovative programs as well. And that was a conscious shift on our part back in 2011 when Judy Royce joined AFC as executive director. And of course, she served very capably for 10 years. And she, along with a wonderful diverse board from across the country, really helped to sort of chart a new course for AFC, where we would fund for impact in a variety of different areas and not solely just with buildings. Not to say just in buildings. Buildings, it is important to keep our facilities welcoming and sound. But it is also important to acknowledge the many ways in which ministry happens across the country. And these, funding for community-based programs and ministries is a huge part of what we do now.
I like that phrase, funding for impact. I mean, we've had these conversations before, haven't we, Neil, about
Yes.
people wanting to make a difference in the lives of people in their neighborhoods and faith lives and children, seniors, marginalized people. So that is a wonderful way to phrase that, funding for impact. Michelle, there's been a lot of change recently, some really exciting change. Speaking of making impact, maybe you could start us off. What's some of the big change that we're seeing with the foundation?
Yeah, so the big change most recently has to do with new categories of funding in our grants program. And it's probably going to take us most of the year to begin to educate people about the changes. So it may sound a bit corny, but I'm calling it the ABCs of AFC for the moment, because we have now category A, B, and C grants. And those are not the only ones. We also still have grants for bursaries, and we'll have requests for proposals and other things that we do. But instead of just having sort of one granting stream as we have had in the past, we now have three. So category A, in a nutshell, is up to $5,000, requires no matching funding component. Category A, we found when we did our Say Yes to Kids RFP in 2021, we were overwhelmed with people who took advantage of the category A option, which was something we were just testing at that time. We thought, well, I don't know, we'll put that out there and see if people, and it was huge uptake on it. And enough that we thought we should make this part of our permanent granting program. It reduces barriers. You don't have to come with a matching component. We can see the very big difference that can be made with a small grant. And I'll use St. James Cambridge as an example. We gave them a $2,100 grant for Say Yes to Kids 2021. And they did some wonderful mental health programs in their church in the spring. And they partnered with actual social workers and also some volunteer educators within the church to provide a month-long series of workshops. There's a write-up on our website about it. But when we saw the grant application come back and the pictures and the impact they had on kids in their community that were really struggling with mental health issues in the wake of the pandemic, and we're like, look what they did with $2,100. It was crazy, So these category A grants are really meant to just reduce the barriers, let people be creative and think about really wonderful things that they can do. Category B grants these are sort of like, you remember when Tim Hortons changed the small, medium, and large, and it was like the old large became the new medium. Well, category B grants are now like the old regular grant, basically, which is up to $15,000. And you do need a matching component, right? So that's the one you would have thought about before. And those can be building projects. They can also be ministry program, community ministry projects. There's not like a limitation to that, but it's just the 15,000 is the cap, and you have to have matching funding. And the category C grants, which we've just announced today, this is like the monster up to $50,000 grants. And it would be the one grant that a diocese could put forward every year. And we developed this grant working together with our board directors and people from across the country. And there'd been some conversations that what if a smaller diocese had one really sort of cornerstone project they wanted to rally around because they maybe didn't have the capacity for 3 of the $15,000 projects, that this $50,000 grant is one that just really lets dioceses think about like a transformational ministry project in that diocese. And it'll be interesting to see what kinds of projects come out of that. But that is the new, a very new and different category.
That's great. So there's lots of opportunity depending on the context and the dream.
Yes.
For
big ones, small ones, right? And these dreams need to be funded at a variety of levels, and we want to make our program more diverse and more accessible on a regular basis. So we've moved from a semi-annual grant cycle to quarterly, so that it can roll more quickly, that people can receive their news about their application in a more timely way, and that it's a long time to wait 6 months if you are thinking about doing a project and you think, oh, I just missed the September window and I got to wait till April. So no, you don't need to do that anymore. It's just quarterly, right? The quarterly grants.
I'm sort of getting a message here. I don't know if I'm wrong with it. You actually really like giving out money to ideas and
too.
missions. Yeah,
It's fun.
Well,
Me too.
yes.
We love to say yes, and we love to also talk to people. We can be helpers, facilitators, and developers for your ministry project. If you have an idea that you're working on, not a lot of people reach out to us, but we are here to help advise. We, just from the Say Yes to Kids program alone, we've given out 100 different, we've had 100 different either grant recipients or fundraising partners through that initiative. So there's stories of all kinds of programs, right, that we know about. And if someone is working on a project, like if you have an idea, let's say for a cool, I don't know, arts program for youth in your community, call me, because I can probably point you to 4 or 5 of similar types of programs that have been developed. And people can use those to refine their ideas and learn from other grant recipients, what to do, what not to do, and that kind of thing.
I was thinking as you're talking, Michelle, I get the sense that the Anglican Foundation is more responsive than ever right now. I mean, like you say, we'll help you with pulling together your grants, give you some examples. It's not just kind of a one-way bureaucratic relationship. It sounds like it's very responsive to the needs, to timing. I mean, wow, to move to quarterly grant opportunities, that's fabulous.
We take our role as collaborators and connectors very seriously. If the church doesn't succeed, there's nothing for us to fund. Like, we can only fund it because the church imagines it. So it is in our best interest to be encouragers, nurturers, collaborators, and connectors, both with donors who want to have an impact in certain key areas across the church, and with ministry programs that want to get up on their feet and thrive, right? So it's a really nice, back and forth. And we do take that role very seriously. And I think maybe unlike we're still a relatively small community foundation. We do see ourselves as a family. We see our donors as a family, but we see our grant recipients as family. And so when somebody needs something, they need help with a part of their grant application or something, like we want to be there to help them out and give them good advice and steer them in the right direction and nurture them to success. And I would say, like, Scott couldn't join us today. He's our executive director. And he served as a grants administrator for AFC for seven years and shepherded 700 grant applications. So he takes a very people-focused approach to what we do. And many of these shifts and moves have been part of his own strategic vision for sort of for his executive directorship of AFC. And so it's really inspiring to see those changes and to see, the genuine desire to be a responsive, flexible partner with the Canadian Church. And that's very genuine.
So I really hope the Canadian Church hears that. All those who are listening, we hear this generosity of spirit. And Gillian Doucette Campbell, who's quite near you, somewhere in Halifax.
Oh, Gillian,
yeah. She says,
watching.
love it.
Okay, hi, Gillian.
We love Gillian.
Yeah.
And Gillian saying, love this change, because it is hard to wait sometimes, especially when you get an idea and you're excited, you want to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a wonderful way to kind of help encourage people. Let's get on with it. Let's try things.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's one of the things we're learning right now as Anglicans, that we need to be more nimble and flexible and listening to what the needs are and responding. So really fits well with kind of what's happening on the ground in our congregations. I'm wondering about the grants themselves, Michelle. What are some of the things that people stumble with, or maybe need to keep in mind if they're thinking about filling out a grant application?
I'm going to give you like 3 tips, and we're actually going to develop some material we're going to send out on a webinar for our grant applications to give people more detailed tips. So watch for that. Number 1 is, I think people get intimidated by the writing part, and they overwrite their applications. So you can feel free. Take a breath. It does not have to be 5,000 words. Okay, it's just has to be, so put it in bullet points. And then later, if you really want to add those rhetorical flourishes and make it, because I've seen some gorgeous grant applications, because there's a lot of really good writers in the Canadian church, and some of them clearly do write grant applications. And I think what a shame it is that it doesn't have some other audience than just, the grant reviewers. Bullet points can do quite well. So it doesn't have to be a vast narrative. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think it's just make sure you have all your permissions, that the people that you need approvals from in your church and in your diocese, that you just have that lined up, that people know, and that if your grant application needs to be reviewed by your synod council, find out when they meet in relation to our next grant cycle, and just kind of you can push those things along even before you've actually begun to fill out the grant application. Number 3 is sometimes on the grants where the matching funding piece comes into play. I think a lot of people struggle with that matching piece sometimes, and they undervalue things that they bring to the table already. Let's use many churches do very well to hire professionals, say carpenters or other tradespeople, to come in and do a renovation project. But lots of them make use of volunteers or people in the church that might be doing certain activities. That's part of your match, right? If you have a value of $5,000 in labor at your church that's going to help to boost that project, that you should consider that a match, right? And give some details about that. So those are 3 things, but we're going to do some work at our end a little bit more to make the application savable. That's my goal before the end of the year, that when you fill in the application, that you can stop, take a breath, come back to it later on. And we want the actual application process to be as user-friendly as possible.
Fantastic. But I love that. That's your part of your match. I mean, I think that's a really important message for people to hear. So part of your match is that labor and that investment in people. Yeah. Kristen Perkins is here. Chris Ambridge here. Betty Mansfield. Hello to you.
There's lots of people. Okay.
Everyone's here. The whole gang is here today. We want to hear from you. What sort of exciting projects are happening in your area, or what has the Anglican Foundation been involved with where you are? That's always so, for me, it's so such an optimistic work, isn't it, really? There are so many things when you kind of look at the expanse of the church. You must have a lot of fun sort of seeing all the things people are trying to do.
I do. I have a lot of fun. Like Say Yes to Kids, the 2021 RFP, it was like 470,000 went out to 79 grant recipients, and they all feel like I feel so connected to a lot of those. And every time I get an email back from somebody saying, oh, we're almost done and our grant report's coming in, I just there's this palpable excitement. Like right now we're working with at Christ Church in the Paw in the Diocese of Brandon. Their Young Voices of the North podcast is just about to drop. Like I'm so excited about the launch of this podcast that they're going to do, and to see things actually come to life. And I think, and they have a particular affinity for them too, because when we gave them the grant, it was because like they had said, Jan Brooks, she had said to the kids in her community, what would you want to do with this money? AFC has this, $5,000 for an RFP. What do you want to do? And they were like, a podcast. And she was like, okay, that's great. And I know she's a podcast producer, but when we gave them the yes, she was just like, you believed in us. Like the kids were so excited because the Anglican Foundation believed in us. And we know that whenever we say yes, we know in some ways it's the easy part, because then there's a program that has to get going after that. And I've been in program launch and development myself, and I know how hard that can be. Getting the money is only kind of like sometimes less than half the battle. It's actually doing it. So we're really rooting for all of the people that we give these grants to, because we know some of them are trying to do very challenging things in their communities, and that it's not always going to be an easy road for them, that they will face obstacles. So we pray for them and we cheer for them and want them to succeed.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Michelle-
Jillian. So I got a comment from Jillian saying, Michelle rocked it, supporting people on peer-to-peer for Say Yes to the Kids. Amazing work. And Ali Cope also says, totally such a great gift to have her support to raise funds for so many amazing things happening. Thank you both.
That's really nice. Thank you.
I know Ali and her team have been recipients, I think, of Say Yes for Kids. So I'm wondering if Ali could share a little bit about that. I'm wondering as well, Michelle, do you have some more stories for us? Because I think it really gives us face kind of a narrative behind this huge foundation.
Yeah, well, Ali and what's going on in Nova Scotia and PI's fantastic story. I mean, we saw in 2021, we gave more Say Yes to Kids grants in the Diocese of Nova Scotia and PEI than any other place. I think there were full 10 applications in your diocese, right? So there was just this huge excitement. And then when we switched gears, the 2022 campaign became more of a collaborative fundraising model where we work together in a peer-to-peer online setting. And Ali and Will and at Christchurch Amherst, they came up with an incredible program and a case for support to, youth homelessness is not an easy challenge to take on, but they worked very hard with some community partners to identify meaningful ways that the church could be involved in at least beginning to address some of the underlying issues of youth homelessness in their community. And they received so much support, and they were one of the first, the only Say Yes to Kids partner that received a gift from a church from another denomination. Like they got so much buy-in in their community, both inside the parish and outside the parish for what they were doing. It really actually showed what is possible through a really pro-youth community-focused campaign like that. And we did have a lot of fun working together as well to get them to their goal. And they had one of the larger goals. It was just over 15,000. They did very well. I'm very proud of them.
Tell me the spirit isn't alive and well in the Anglican Church.
Oh yeah. Actually, and Ali says, yeah, we've been very grateful recipients that Say Yes to the Kids funds at the diocesan level for our Community Roots Day Camp program.
Yeah.
There's lots of cheering for Nova Scotia and PEI going right now. This is your moment.
Well, I'd like to just whatever's in the water, of course, take that to other places and look. But
Yes.
it's a great. I love that I can point to a lot of the really exciting and diverse community programs happening in Nova Scotia and PEI to other people when they feel and others. Other dioceses where there might not be that much going on for young people, they do feel discouraged, or they'll say, we don't know what to do. We'd like to do something, but we don't know what we can do. It is nice to have aspirational models and people and places to showcase at that time. And I think it does help people a lot to go beyond and then say, well, maybe we could try something like that on a smaller scale here, right? And yeah.
Ali's actually put a link to your youth and family ministry, their Community Roots, and she's put a link to that in the thing. And she says, and we just had a really great conversation with our local youth development center in Amherst about offering some trauma-informed leadership training for volunteers from the church and the broader community to better support programs. Yeah, that's exactly it. I love that kind of community church interaction. It's fab.
Yeah,
That's
and
where it is.
and noteworthy too, when she says the Youth Development Center in Amherst, like their project and many other projects across the country are showcasing what churches can do by partnering with other community organizations, partnering with, and those could be healthcare organizations, they can be schools. Like, I don't know whether the pandemic, I've heard people say that they think the pandemic changed the appetite that sort of the secular world might have to partner with schools. I know that there are dioceses where I talk to some people and they would say, oh, we could never partner with a school. You know, we could never do that. We're a church, we could not. The schools are off the table as partners. Well, if I'm here to tell you that that is not the case nationwide. There are a lot of churches that are partnering with schools in meaningful ways. Yeah, they usually have to assure the school or the community partner that the program itself will be accessible to people of all faiths or no faith, but they will partner with you, like they will partner with the church. And some of the best community ministry programs we are doing right now, we are doing in partnership with community organizations. And I think it's actually so exciting to us. As we're tossing about ideas for next year's RFP, one of the topics that came up was maybe we do an RFP that's a partnership base. If you are doing a cool partnership with another church, with a community organization, you know, or it's a first-time partnership or something, maybe we might want to have a special granting focus on those kinds of things. Mm-hmm.
That also means we don't have to do everything all by ourselves.
No,
Yeah.
no, we don't, and we shouldn't, because we do things better when we work with other people. You know, we really do. And I think, but there is this sense that maybe our approaches to partnership might be rebuffed. You know, but I know that there are, but not always. And I think there are a lot of community agencies that are definitely willing and happy to work with churches. Yeah.
I think it's been a very surprising thing for me. I remember when a local mental health organization reached out to the local churches, you know, for a partnership, and it was very fruitful.
Yeah.
Because people recognize, you know, people need community, and there's a lot we can do in partnership with each other.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't know till you ask, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I find sometimes with congregations is they don't realize that they have something to offer. Like, we're good at organizing stuff.
Yeah.
We've got great locations, usually pretty solid buildings. You know, we have gifts in terms of pastoral hospitality. We have something to offer in partnerships. So it's not like we, you know, have to be experts in mental health or whatever the aim is for the initiative, that we can partner and offer what we have. And yeah, I think that, talk about impact.
Definitely. And I think our grant programs are structured in a way that are designed to be pro-partnership. So if, for example, some of the grants, like when I think about, there's a program out in the Diocese of Ottawa, it was called Rising Up Children, Arts and Community. So they had great facility, great ideas, there's some volunteers, but they used part of their grant to hire certain arts educators to come in. So it was volunteer-led in terms of the development of the program, and then supported strategically by arts educators to come in and do certain things, right? And there are some mental health programs. I think it was, there's another church, there's a lot of them in my mind. There's another one out in the Diocese of Huron that partnered again with a mental health organization. And so the therapists and what have you would have received proper compensation, right, for the work that they were doing. But you're using the church facility, you have volunteers that are helping to coordinate and organize the event. That's what the money is for, right? If you get a $5,000 grant, it's to pay things that spend money on the things that you need to spend money on. And sometimes community ministry programs do benefit from, strategic investments, and then we rally, as you say, Lisa, all the great building, the great location. Sometimes a lot of our churches have better industrial kitchens than some restaurants do, you know. So we've got the tables and the chairs, and we organize things all the time. And it's a really nice marriage of resources.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true. Those Meals on Wheels people are also very good at getting grants for kitchens, right? So yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Michelle, about membership. Do folks who are preparing applications need to have their own membership? What are some of the ins and
It's
outs?
interesting you raised that. In the past, we or for a time, I think it started in 2018, that when you applied for a grant, it was like you needed to be a member. And so we have waived that. So you don't need to be a member of the foundation for any other reason than you just want to be a member of the foundation and that you want to pay it forward. You just want to be part of this beautiful, supportive family that is there for other members of the family when they need it, and is sometimes there for you when you need it, right? And so you don't have to, we waive that because, maybe some people thought it seemed a bit like, oh, I have to do this before I can do that. And we didn't want that to be the case for applicants. So you don't have to be a member. Of course, it's lovely. The more of us that are members of the foundation, it's a well from which we draw resources. And the more that well is filled up and with the life-giving water that we all need, then the better off the church is as a result of it, And so in gifts large and small, there's a variety of levels at which to be a member. Many people choose the one that's most means appropriate for them, but it is wonderful to have as many people in the Canadian church as possible thinking about membership in AFC. Yeah.
Yeah, Jillian saying really excited about that development, not needing to be a member, but as you say, why not? Like, who wouldn't want to be part of something so optimistic and life-giving as that?
Yeah.
And in a way, we could be a family together for each other. Yeah.
I like that. Pay it forward.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's important. And I think as people of faith, I think it's a concept that we can all get behind and understand. And that's how, we have a thrift shop in Hay River, and I did a feature story about them a couple of years ago, and they give us an extremely generous gift every year. And it's because we were there for them when they started. And there's like, without fail, this gift arrives every year. And I don't remember her name right off the top, but there was a story about her on our website. And when she started the thrift shop, it was just very important to her that, that it be part of the charter of the thrift shop, that AFC helped get them started, and that they would always make sure to have a gift to us every year. It's really lovely. But it more or less is the absolute, this is highly emblematic of the pay it forward. And there are some churches that feel that way about it. About half of our annual donations come from churches and organizations. And and as well, and then the other half obviously from individuals. But when churches do choose to become members, and that was originally the whole point of AFC back in 1957, was that if we all became members and we were members every year, then we could all help one another to do all of the different projects that we would need to do, right?
So just to be clear, you can make a donation as an individual person, but also as a congregation or a parish to do that. And I'll just remind folks that Tuesday is Giving Tuesday. So if you're looking for a way to support ministries throughout the Canadian church, all over regionally and in small communities, that's a great way to do it.
And the link is there in our conversation feed. So it's a great opportunity right now. Because why not? As one big family, let's share our resources with each other. Yeah. And again, for our guests, I see Valerie Bennett's watching, Ruth Heine in Edmonton. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Do you have any great stories or great ideas going on where you are, or some great story about working with the Anglican Foundation? We'd love to hear from you. In our last few minutes, we're already starting to come towards the end.
Yeah.
over time, but wow.
Actually, there's a new children's choir starting up in Edmonton because of Say Yes to Kids grant. So the
All
Diocese of
right.
Edmonton Children's Choir. Yeah, I understand they've had, Scott was just out in Edmonton, and Edmonton's a great, what off the top, I talked to you about our grant distribution, 35% to buildings, 30% to community ministries. In the Diocese of Edmonton, the way that they interact with the foundation aligns in almost like perfectly with that in terms of our breakdown. It's a diocese where they really see all the different funding opportunities and take advantage and make use of all the different funding opportunities in all the different categories and areas. It's really nice to see that. And those are the kinds of, just as with Nova Scotia and PEI and as New West and Niagara, there's a couple other dioceses too that really they seem to really understand that the foundation is a place they can come for building grants, but also for many of these other things. And I think our challenge is just to work better, more closely with dioceses where that hasn't been the case yet, right?
I think that's a really important message. So, to everyone out there, this is more than just building grants. That is part of it, but there are, other things as well. And what a time we're in right now in the church where innovating, trying new things, reaching out in different ways is so important. And this could be some real encouragement to do that.
Definitely.
Whether it's a youth thing or something else, or like a children's choir. I mean, how fabulous.
It's great. And actually, in order to share some of these stories, for Say Yes to Kids, anyway, we built a hub, anglicanfoundation.org/SYTK. And it's going to be we're going to keep uploading as the grant stories come in for Say Yes to Kids 2021 and 2022. We'll keep uploading all the stories, pictures, and linking to news articles on our website. And the idea is that it can become and it's separated into different categories like community building and faith formation and outdoor recreation and things, so that people can look and see all the different projects as they've gotten on their feet and have gotten themselves established.
I just put the link in. So folks
okay,
can read
awesome. That's great.
Oh yeah, there's the stories. Fantastic. And Jillian says, thank you for sharing these good news stories. Beautiful to learn about different churches across the country. It is indeed.
Nice.
Yeah.
So just one more reminder, the next deadline for the grant cycle is January 1, right?
Right, it is. Now, and we know that one is harder for people to take advantage. It's just simply when we had to, at some point, we were going to have to launch this and be rather close to the deadline for the next one. But if someone does have a project that they feel they can come into us with, even like a category A grant for 5,000, we want to hear from you. And you can always reach out to me, mhauser@anglicanfoundation.org. Very, very happy to do a bit of project facilitation, nurturing, mentorship, encouragement. And they can apply by January 1. And if you think you'll be a wee bit late, drop me a line. We'll see. Well, making sure you can get your application in. Yeah.
So
Did you
that's
hear
great.
that, everyone? Sorry,
Yeah.
just today we were being invited to apply and offered help to do so.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is fab. Yeah. Well, thank you. I feel so encouraged by our conversation today. It's been really great. We envy you, your job. I think it must be one of you must have the best job in the country.
I think I do. I definitely think. And I have worked I've been in a personal capacity in the Anglican Church since 2006. And then, 2001. And then a professional capacity since 2006. And I worked at the diocesan level, at the national church level. So I've seen the church in all the different areas. I know it. I run a community-based program out of my own church here in Napanee, Ontario, in the Diocese of Ontario. And I do actually think I have the best job in the Canadian church, because it is, and I never take it for granted that I end up being at the receiving end of the good news, and then having the privilege of being part of the team that tells people that we're giving you money, which is a lot of fun and feels good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. And it's obvious, you know, church land and you have a good grasp of kind of the national church and all that's going on. So we'll have to have you on again sometime. Maybe we can hear back about some of the stories of what's happening to give folks not only about the Anglican Foundation, but what's possible. There's a bit of discouragement right now. And I think hearing the stories about the children's choir and, you know, some of the youth housing, like you said, in Amherst, and some of these stories that God has not abandoned the church, and we can help one another join God in the neighborhood. And this is kind of one of the ways that we can do that. So thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for having me on, and thanks for your show. I've always been a fan, so it's really nice to have the opportunity to come on. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, it's been Pew and Beyond for another week.
Pew and Beyond is an initiative of the Spiritual Formation for Discipleship Network of the Anglican Church of Canada. Join us next week. We've got a couple more weeks before Christmas, and we're already planning for the new year. So lots of great guests coming up.
Yes, I think we've got next week. We're going to be talking about a great thing you can get all your friends for Christmas. So come and find out.
That's great.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And thank you everyone out there for participating, especially Jillian. Jillian, always good to see you, and everybody else as well. So thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing you again.